Yeah, we might as well start. If there's any late arrivals, I'll add them as they come along. So hopefully I'll spot them. Like I said at the beginning, please do join in the chat as much as possible. A quick word about Celtic Whisky Fest. If you haven't done one of these nights before, these are designed to take the place of Whisky Live in a sort of little way and give people the chance to celebrate whiskies together, be it over Zoom and not in the convention center or the RDS. Unfortunately, we can't do that this year, but hopefully next year it's all going to happen. Take the place of those masterclasses and whatnot. And we have had some great tasting nights so far. There's still a few left, which you find on the Celtic Whisky Shop website, www.celticwhiskyshop.com. On the tastings tab there, a few left this week that you can still take part in. Even if we don't get the packs out to you in time for the tasting night, they're always good to enjoy. So have a look there. A quick plug on the packs and the sort of presentation as well. That's basically the way all our whiskies are getting sent out on our new site, which is Drams. Sorry, very noisy there. Dramsdelivered.com. There it is, and that's connected to our bar site in Killarney, where you can get over 1,200 different whiskies and other spirits and get them delivered to your door in little sample packs. So yeah, pretty special whiskies on there. If you go into rare and collectible or rare and old, you'll see some amazing stuff. I hope you can see this. I should be sharing that screen. So yeah, if you ever want to try Ardbeg 1978, there it is, once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, that's my quick plug for them. A bit about the whiskies we're trying tonight. So I think it was 2013 that 2012 that the first one we're about to try was released, and this came about after we'd done a few independent releases of Connemara and Tyrconnell whiskies, and we decided why not create our own label, because no one in Ireland at the time was doing anything like that with single cask whiskies being bottled by an independent producer. Now, there's a lot of people doing it now, but at the time it wasn't being done. And we also had these incredible relationships with wineries around Europe, and especially fortified wine companies. So we were very fortunate to get some casks of sherry and other things. So why not use them and put whiskey in them and see how they progress. Which brings us on to Celtic Cask Hain, or Celtic Cask 1, which is a Palo Cortado cask. And this came from Emilio Hidalgo in Jerez. And like what is now a kind of famous Connemara bottling we did, I can't remember the cask number of the Connemara. I thought I'd written it down. But yeah, the Connemara that we did in Amontillado was fantastic, and that led us on to thinking, well, if we've done Amontillado, then do Palo Cortado, because they're in the same sort of flavor spectrum in terms of sherry. So hopefully they would work with whiskey. And Palo Cortado is something you don't often see with whiskey finishes, and you don't often see Palo Cortado sherry either. It's quite a rare thing, which I'll talk about a little bit more after we get nosing. So let's stick our noses in, or even if some of you might have tasted already, but do get stuck in, and don't forget to join in the chat. I hope you can all hear me okay. Do let me know if you have any sound problems or if there's anything going wrong. Just going to have a sip of water before I do anything else. So a bit about the whiskey. I don't think we said on the the label itself, but it was distilled at Cooley Distillery, so double distilled, unpeated, single malt, and it was, the cask was filled in 1996 in at the end of October, and then emptied in December 2012. And it was originally filled in another cask in 1996. So approximately 16 years old, probably just below 16. And the initial casks were quite odd as well. There was initially aged in a second fill bourbon for 3 years, then transferred into fresh bourbon cask for 11 years, and then the final finishing period in the Palo Cortado, which is about 2 years. And do let us know what you think of the nose. There's a nice fruitiness there, sort of citrusy, orangey notes. Don't know what anyone else gets. Maybe some milk chocolate or something like that. All kinds of tropical fruits, melon, pineapple, kaki fruit, which I've been eating a lot of recently, and that's how it pops in there. And we might as well taste. I'm going to taste it without water. It is 46%. But feel free to add water as well yourself. Be great to see what, or let me know what kind of glasses you're using, what kind of glassware. I think I can see a few Glencairns on some, yeah, there we go, Olaf and Thomas Glencairns. But yeah, let's have a taste, and I'll talk about the actual cask itself. So like a few of the Celtic cask whiskies we've done, this isn't your ordinary sherry cask. I've talked a bit about Palo Cortado, but you'll also sort of hear a lot of people talking about sherry seasoned cask, and that's pretty much what's used in the whiskey industry, is cask that might not even be destined to be used as sherry, usually sherry vinegar or some sort of sherry derivative, and that's what most people use for whiskies these days. And they can have anything from 6 months to a few years in cask with the sherry before they're shipped over and filled with whiskey. But this one actually came from a Solera system, and we had to sort of beg for the people at Emilio Hidalgo to get it over to us. It's an 80-year-old sherry cask. So it's been holding whiskey for 80 years, which is pretty amazing. And it gives a completely different character to the whiskey. Obviously a lot more sherry influence and a lot less sort of fresh oak, which is one of my sort of bugbears with sherry cask whiskies, where you're almost like tasting too much new oak and not enough sherry character. And like the Amontillado one we used for the Connemara, that was the same story with that one. Yeah, same Solera cask, which are incredibly hard to find. We're going to taste a few more in this flight that are something similar, but not full size sherry butts or puncheons. They're kind of cut down Solera casks. So these two and a few others are the only chance we ever had to get full-size Solera casks, which are pretty hard to get hold of. Anyway, let's have another taste. Dave says chocolate lava cake. Yeah, I'm getting more of that chocolatiness on the second taste. Yeah, more kind of in the earthy sort of spectrum, but not sort of dirty sort of spectrum. But yeah, sort of heavier flavors maybe than the first time when I was getting more of those tropical fruits. Don't be shy. Please join in with any notes of your own. So for those of you who don't know sherry, I'm not going to waffle on about much more, but Palo Cortado is an odd style. It starts off like a Fino sherry. So Fino sherries are aged under a film of what they call flor, which is like a sort of yeast or something similar to yeast. It's like almost like a fungal sort of growth. Protects the wine from oxidization and also has some sort of interactions with the wine, give a sort of salty, almost bright, briny olive sort of character to Fino sherries. And with a Palo Cortado, that at some stage inexplicably ceases happening, so that flor will die down and it becomes more oxidized and a little bit more like an Oloroso in style. Yeah, somewhere between the Fino and an Oloroso in style, a little bit like an Amontillado, but not quite. And usually what they do when they become a Palo Cortado is they put a strike through a line that's on the cask already to say it's a Fino and to say it's not Fino anymore. And that strike is Cortado, and that's where we get the name from. So it basically means broken or cross stick or something like that. Yeah. And then once it becomes Palo Cortado, they'll have to fortify it. Depending on how long they want to age it for, they'll fortify it several times. So each time they fortify it again, they'll add another cross across the chalk mark on the cask. And the oldest ones you get would be maybe 3 or 4 attempts at fortification, because obviously when it's in cask, it's losing alcohol all the time. So they need to keep adding alcohol to keep it fresh. Olaf asking how long was it in Palo Cortado? 2 years. Yeah, I wouldn't say exactly 2 years, but it was approximately 2 years in the Palo Cortado, which is a kind of almost like our sort of standard finishing period. But bear in mind that some of the casks we're trying tonight are tiny casks, and this is a very big one. I'm not sure exactly how many bottles we got from it, but it was a lot, and it was probably close to 500 liters in size, whereas some of the other ones we're going to try later on are sort of 53-liter casks that we're used for the whiskey. Very different, and a very different profile I get from that. And obviously the surface area and all that kind of stuff has an effect on the sort of maturation of the whiskey. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that one. I think we were very happy with this one. I think I wouldn't change anything about it. Obviously, me and Ali were very careful. This being the first in the series, we wanted to get it right. I think it's just got enough sherry cask character there to sort of bring it a level up, essentially. Yeah. Thanks, Olaf. Yeah, it's nice. Still very drinkable. Well, of course it is, yeah. Annette and John, hi guys. Yeah, it is very drinkable, and I'd love to get myself a bottle of that, but it is expensive now. We do have a few bottles left, and it's going for 300 bottle now, just because of the rarity value. And we have to make sure we have a spare or two for the Celtic Whiskey Bar in Killarney as well, because we have the whole collection down there, obviously, to taste. So I'm going to have one last go, and then we'll maybe move on to the next one, which is, I think it's a red wine cask. Bear with me. Yeah, number 29, the Anima Negra will be the next one. It's another interesting cask to talk about. Yeah, Dave, that Dunville's, Dave was saying that it was lovely, the Palo Cortado and the Dunville's tasting. He loved as well. That's a fantastic whiskey, incredible, really good. If anyone ever gets a chance to try it, do it, because it's lovely. It's expensive stuff as well. So we'll move on. Maybe if anyone wants to add any more opinions on that one, please do. So Celtic Cask 29, Anima Negra. Just going to pour mine. I'm keeping a little bit left over of each one if we want to go back at the end and try them again. So it's always a good idea to do that if you want to compare and contrast them when we get to the end. So this is Cooley again. We do have, when we're not allowed to talk about what distilleries these whiskies come from, we do have a few clues and hints on the label. Obviously, a lot of them at the time could only have been from Cooley Distillery because they'd be labelled as double distilled single malt, and they're from a certain era where Cooley were the only people really doing double distilled single malt. Although Bushmills in the 90s did a little bit as well, and yeah, normally we would say distilled in the Republic of Ireland or something like that. And if it would happen to be from Bushmills, we might say distilled on the island of Ireland and whatnot. So the kind of little clues on there that you have to hunt for, but sometimes we're not allowed to say at all what distillery it comes from. We do have Countercast Coog, which is Countercast 5. That's a single pot still whiskey, and I think that was distilled in the 1990s. I don't think we're allowed to label that as Middleton, but obviously people who know the whiskies will be able to deduce it as a Middleton whiskey. Olaf, one of your favorite scotches in recent time, Palo Cortado finished Deanston. I haven't tried that. They're doing some great stuff at Deanston though. There's lots of talk about their whiskies. Yeah, that could be definitely one to try. And yeah, Deanston, check out their whiskies because they're good value for money as well. A lot of people haven't heard of the distillery, so still some bargains to be had out there with distilleries like that, definitely. So this one, this is a little bit older. It's actually been in bourbon barrels for 19 years. Distilled in 1999 and recast into a red wine barrel from the quite famous Anima Negra distillery in Mallorca, which is consistently rated as one of Spain's top wineries. And obviously it's one of Mallorca's top wineries as well. And it's an interesting red wine made predominantly from local grape varieties, indigenous grape varieties, with names like Callet and Fogonou and other things I can't remember. But yeah, it's a lovely wine, and obviously we sell it in the shop, so that's definitely worth checking out if you like your red wine. Before you ask, this is 9 months in the Anima Negra cask, and I'll have a quick nose. I'll talk a bit more about the cask in a second. Quite different, isn't it? So same distillery, different cask, slightly older. There's some distinct things I always get from whiskies in Anima Negra casks that we do some sort of like confected notes, like boiled sweets, but also things like red cola or even cola bottle chews, that kind of thing. And there's a nice sort of spicy touch on the nose there as well, I find. What do you guys think? Join in the chat and let me know. So we'll taste it in a second. Obviously they're red wine casks. Dave says licorice on the nose. Yeah, maybe red licorice or black licorice. They're French oak casks, and they're really high quality French oak. When you see them, we had a few in the shop once when they're on in transit, and the quality of the craftsmanship on these French oak casks is outstanding. You know, we compare them. If you have them side by side to an ex-bourbon cask, there's no comparison. The grain of the wood and the finish on the surface, they're like pieces of handmade furniture. Really, really impressive. But yeah, and obviously French oak has a different character to American oak, and most people don't know that most sherry casks would be made from American oak as well. So there's a bit of a difference there, but you tend to get with French oak a little bit more spice and pepperiness sometimes as well. It really depends on what's been in them before and how old the cask is. So John and Annette's quite subtle nose, slightly herby, yeah. And Thomas, red apples, marzipan, a bit of cinnamon, definitely, yeah. I definitely agree with all of those. The red apples, yeah. It's like those proper Irish grown red apples. You know, the type that you might buy at a market stall or whatever, and they're really sort of waxy on the skin, and when you open them up, they've got that sort of pink tinge underneath the skin. Smell like them when you've cut them open. Yeah, John's laughing at me there. Maybe even red grapes, something like that. Getting that marzipan note now, Thomas, yeah. Let's have a taste if you haven't tasted it. Again, this is 46%, so you might want to add water, you might not, but I'm going to taste it without. So we just have another arrival. I'll wait for him to get in. I'll just put up I'll put up the order again so that we all know where we are, and James, who just joined us, can see the order. James, if you're in now, we've already done the first one, Celtic Cascade, so sorry about that. We'll go back to it at the end, or we'll revisit it and have another taste. And we're on the second one now, Celtic Fish sorry, two Irish speakers out there. Number 29, it's Anima Negra French wine finish. So anyway, that's that. Yeah, sorry you're late, James, but here we are. We're catching up. Onto the palate. Let me know what you think. It's maybe a little less weight than the Palo Cortado one for me. It's kind of got a fresher, fruitier character to it. Sorry if the microphone's picking up all that with me chewing whiskey in my mouth. yeah, there's a nice spiciness, I find. Chip in and let me know what kind of spices you're tasting. And you can almost feel the French oak. You can feel the oakiness. The tannins are there, giving it a sort of chewy mouthfeel. But less syrupy maybe than the Palo Cortado, but it's got more tannin for me anyway. Yeah. So we do have this one still on our website. It's 165 without a gift box, unfortunately. So it's just a bottle on its own. And there were 380 bottles made. So quite a big cask. I do have a graphic I'll bring up in a second on cask sizes, which is good to see, especially when we move on to the smaller ones. I'll maybe do that in a minute. Dave, cherry on the palate. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely get that. Almond and nutmeg, dial down Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with the Dr. Pepper note. It's not a million miles away from cola, which I tend to get with these ones in the Anima Negra casks. Thomas, red fruits and a bit mineral. Yeah, mineral notes, probably the wine influence maybe. Definitely quite fruity. You have to like your fruity whiskies to like this one. Yeah. I do like that chewiness though, the tannins from the French oak that give it a bit more mouthfeel and texture. And it kind of leads on to the finish. You know, you're getting that spiciness and pepperiness all the way to the finish. Yeah. So I'll remind myself what the next one is. Just a bit about the whiskies as well. These are all obviously non-chill filtered, and some of them we do at cask strength, but our sort of default strength is 46. And if we feel they deserve to be at a higher strength, we'll go above 46. But I think most people are happy at 46. It seems to be the norm for sort of premiumized whiskies these days. Be interesting to hear what people think about what their favorite strength is. You get some people moaning about 40% these days, especially when you're paying good money for whiskey. You know, when you're paying over the sort of 50 euros, I think people expect 43, 46, maybe higher. But be interested to hear your views on that. Yeah, so I'll remind myself. Yeah, so Countercast 36. We'll move on to, I got a little bit left, so I'm going to finish that off. Excuse the noise. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Irish number. No, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, a few people saying 46 to 50, 46 to 48 range. Yeah, I think it depends on how much whiskey you drink as well and what you're used to drinking. You know, if, a lot of people might only be used to drinking Jameson Powers and an occasional sort of better whiskey, they'd be happy at 40%. But I think if you're drinking decent whiskey regularly, you're kind of looking at 46 or higher. I would say so anyway. So double distilled in the Republic of Ireland, which tells us coolly, yeah. Again, this is actually not 46%, it's 48.6, which I'm pretty sure is cask strength. So that tells you a little bit about the cask it was in. So this was in a first fill bourbon cask for 13 years, distilled in 2001. So 13 years in the bourbon cask. And then partly decanted in May 2015 into an old Solera cask that was resized and was basically a 53-liter cask, as far as I remember. So this one bourbon barrel was split, and we had some of it go into Celtic 34 and some of it into Celtic 36. And this is obviously 36 in Oloroso cask. And I mentioned, sorry, getting a bit hot in here, mentioned a little bit about those casks, but these are basically, again, ex-Solera, so not seasoned barrels of sherry. They're proper Solera barrels that have been in a Solera system for decades. But we had a contact given to us, and let's see if I can bring him up. Do I have him here? Sorry, bear with me a second. I get a picture of a guy called Julio coming up, and he is the fix-it man at for many bodegas in Jerez, and he basically takes damaged or leaking barrels that are kind of deemed beyond repair, and he resizes them into smaller casks for various uses. It might be for Spanish brandy or even for sherry again, but in a smaller size. And we were lucky enough to get a whole lot of barrels off him at mostly 53 liters. I think we may have got some 75 liters from him as well. Obviously, he's standing there next to some sherry puncheons by the look of things. So they're a lot smaller than that, basically quarter that size for these barrels. And I'll bring up, while I'm here, I'll try and find it. A handy little size chart. So there you go, there are different barrel sizes. What we're looking at right now is about a quarter cask size, so approximately 50 liters, 53 liters in this case. And if you compare that to the sherry puncheon and the sherry butts below them, a good bit smaller, actually more than a quarter of the size, or less than a quarter of the size, if you get what I mean. Probably, what's that? It's about a ninth of the size of a butt, and about a sixth of the size of a puncheon. So a lot smaller. And obviously you get a lot more sherry influence when you're using a small cask because of the different surface area. So enough of my waffling, let's have a smell. Oh, sorry, Olaf, you didn't get to see the picture. I'll maybe revisit again, sorry about that. To me, this smells more woody. It smells more lived in and sort of warmer, and it's a bit more like walking into a sherry bodega, if I can imagine what a sherry bodega smells like. Or some wineries that you might visit in harder places when you walk into a maturation warehouse with wine barrels in them. So what are we getting on the nose? There is something slightly umami, sort of savory, salty on the nose, but they're not so caramels, chocolates. There you go. Thomas has some good ones. Raisins, dates, dark chocolate, coffee. Absolutely, yeah. like a milky mocha coffee with definitely raisins and sultanas. Maybe some soft confected notes and licorice. Maybe let's have a taste. So again, 48.6. I'm going to try it at full strength. I'd say most of you are kind of comfortable at that strength by the sounds of things. But feel free to add water. I might try and add some water after first taste. Both sides of the Christmas table from Olaf, he says, savory mains and dessert table. Yeah. There's definitely a sort of something vaguely meaty on the nose. And immediately when you taste it, the mouthfeel is massive, syrupy and mouth coating. Yeah, really gets around your mouth. It's like lots of weight to it. Nothing surprising on the flavors compared to the aromas. I think it's kind of more of the same. Definitely getting those chocolatey coffee mocha things with maybe dried fruits of all kinds. Dave, thinking oxtail soup. Yeah, there's something in that sort of realm. Yeah. I'm getting more fruit off the nose now. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it in a second as well, but I'm going to have one more sip at full strength. Very scientific method of adding a bit of water. Don't want to overdo it. So as I would expect, it's a lot more fruity when you add water to it on the nose. I'm getting some kind of tropical notes. I'd recommend giving it a try. Add a little bit of water if you can. Yeah, again, it's more fruity. Nice chocolatey. Love to hear your thoughts on that one. I'll see if I can bring back that picture of the barrels. Let me know in the chat if you can see that. Hey, you can see it. Great. So Countercast there is around about what we're tasting. So the second smallest one. So yeah, quite different size to the others. That one at the end, the Gorda, you'd never see that in your life unless you're in probably in a bottling facility in Jerez or something like that, because it's only really used, I think, to store things like sherry in a sort of intermediate fashion before they're going to be bottled. If you want, I can go through the ones I know. Drums used for Madeira, pipes for port. A lot of people know them. Butts and puncheons for sherry, and I think Madeira as well. Occasionally, barriques, usually for wine of all kinds. Hogsheads, a kind of standard British barrel, but you'll also get sherry hogsheads. So sherry butts and puncheons that are cut down to hogsheads, used a lot in Scotland, which are well worth seeking out if you ever see Scottish whiskey matured in a sherry hogshead. They're usually quite good because you get a bit more sherry influence. American barrel would be your standard bourbon barrel, and then so on. I think British barrel is more of a kind of beer kind of size, and then mostly the smaller ones are kind of typically used for beer rather than whiskey, although these days we see a lot of quarter casks and a lot of octaves as well, which are even smaller. Obviously, it's half the size again. Problem with these, sorry, stop sharing and get back to the whiskey as well. Scotch malts, he did an experiment with Gorda. Casks in the past. People either loved or hated those releases. All right, great. That's interesting to hear. So the Gorda has been used in the past, but we haven't seen them since. So I'd say, yeah, from what Olaf said, Olaf mixed opinions on it. Yeah, the problem with the smaller casks is that they're unreliable. You can get a leak or extreme evaporation, and if you're not keeping an eye on it, you can lose all your whiskey overnight or over the course of a week or something. So you really need to keep an eye on them. I know some Scottish bottlers moan about octave casks because they're so unreliable, but a lot of people, especially shareholders who've maybe had a number of people investing in a cask and then have gone on to say to a bonded warehouse, can you split it into octaves and we'll all have one each? And it's like a recipe for disaster because keeping an eye on them and making sure that the whiskey doesn't disappear is a bit of a pain. We've had a few interesting ones. We had a Vinsanto cask that for some reason turned green, sort of dark green color. And that's probably never going to see the light of day. I might see later on if I can grab a sample of it. I got one here, which is interesting to see. Okay, so yeah, Springbank, according to the chat, thanks guys for chipping in. Springbank did some in Gordas amongst others, so there have been some out there. Final thoughts on Countercast 36, do let me know. Thanks, James. Yeah, James says, seems like we're on some very awesome whiskey, made even more impressive with the finish. The sherry's there, but doesn't overtake the spirit, in his opinion. Yeah, that's always the aim with Celtic Cask. Yeah, you could also forget it's a Cooley whiskey because it has a more weight and a silkier, bigger sort of flavor all around, really. I think compared to standard, say like Tyrconnell's, etc. But we'll move on to the next one, which is the PX cask, which is a similar barrel. I think it's a different age profile slightly. Let me remind myself. So double distilled, single malt from the Republic of Ireland. So Cooley again, 2001 distilled, 14 years in an ex-bourbon cask, and again re-racked into a 53-year-old, sorry, not 53-year-old, 53-litre Pedro Jimenez sherry barrel. It was custom made from an old 500-litre Solera cask, and 18 months finish for this one. So it's a little bit less than the others we've had in the cask, but sometimes with these small barrels you don't need much, and I think we've done some even less than 18 months because you don't need a huge amount of time in the finishing cask. So yeah, cast originally the 10th of May 2001, bottled 10th of November 2016. So approximately 14 and a half years old. Is that right? Yeah. My arithmetic's okay. So this one's different again. On the nose, it's what is it more fruity, less meaty, less savory? The fruits that are definitely dried fruits for me anyway. And a bit of tropical fruit in there as well, certainly. A nice sort of creaminess as well. I didn't really talk about Oloroso sherry. I assume you all know what Oloroso is. PX, you probably all know what PX is, but for anyone who doesn't, it's basically sweet, sticky sherry, really, really dark, almost like a watered down treacle in sort of texture and appearance. And you'll see it a lot more. You've seen loads of whiskies in PX these days. I think for young whiskies, it's a really good way of adding color and texture and a little bit of sweetness to a young whiskey. So you'll probably see even more being used with the sort of new breed of distillers in Ireland. I think PX mixed with a little bit of virgin oak and maybe some standard oak is a good kind of baseline recipe for anyone with young whiskey to work with. You get some people overdoing virgin oak though, but yeah, PX can add a lot of apparent maturity to a whiskey that isn't actually that mature, which is a kind of handy thing to have. But too much PX becomes gloopy and heavy, and you can be struggling to find the whiskey underneath. So I hope that's not what we've done here. Maybe we should have a taste. This is 46 again, so back to 46. I think the previous one was the only one that was higher, so I'm not going to bother with water again. Sweet tropical fruits, yeah, Thomas. I'd agree. Yeah. Even though it's a sweet sherry, it's a bit more. For me, it's a little less syrupy than the previous one, but maybe a bit more spicy. So I don't unfortunately know a huge amount about the Solera barrel, but maybe it was yeah, James saying a quick tannin hit. So maybe I think the oak in this one was a little bit fresher, as in it had been seasoned as much by the Solera, even if it was a decade still in the Solera system. It seems like the oak is a bit more active in this one. We're getting some of that sort of pepperiness and tannin, which is nice though. It adds an extra dimension to the whiskey, I think. Yeah. Yeah, certainly drier than a lot of PX finishes, and I do really like the fruitiness there. Yeah, you can get some obviously dried grapes in various forms and other dried fruits in various forms. Sorry, got something in my eye. Something like treacle or dark chocolate, maybe. What do you guys think? Let me know. Yeah, sort of creamy dark chocolate, not the really bitter stuff. And some milk chocolate as well. Nice spiciness as well. Cinnamon, mace, that kind of thing, I think. Let me know what you think of that. I'm a fan. Like I said before, we'll probably go back to some of these at the end and compare them. I think I'd be interested to try the Oloroso that we previously tried and the Pedro Jimenez head-to-head, even with the Palo Cortado. Quite different sort of sets of finishes to them. But we'll finish up with the Countercast 10, which is one that I have quite vivid memories of doing. I think this was our first one in Rhone Valley casks. So different red wine casks from an estate in the Rhone Valley near Mont Ventoux. The main design is owned by a man originally from Kilkenny, Gabriel McGuinness is his name. And it's a very small vineyard, 18 hectares. We don't actually import their wines anymore. But when we were doing them, there was a number of different importers into Ireland because obviously being an Irish winery in France, there was a bit of interest in them purely because it was Irish owned. Sorry, James, I missed your comment. Superb, this reminds me a lot of number 34. Yeah. Slight minty herbal note, yeah. And fruits remind you of cherries and overpowering. Really well done balance. You'll have magic and PX. I usually don't go for those, but they're excellent. I'd say stick at the PX ones because we mentioned Dunville's earlier on, but Dunville's have done some great stuff with PX. They're expensive, a bit like some of these, but they're really nice whiskies, and yeah, they're doing it right, you know. But this is double distilled in the Republic of Ireland, but peated. So that tells us it's basically the same stock as standard Connemara, which obviously we'd done quite a few Connemara single casks in the past, and we've done a few Celtic casks under the same, with the same sort of source spirit. So peated to a level of approximately 20 ppm, which is what would be classed as a sort of medium peatiness in Scotland, certainly in Islay. I think the hefty ones in Islay are sort of 45, 50 ppm, and then higher even still when you go into things like Octomore and Port Charlotte and things like that. But yeah, Lagavulin and Lefroy Gardbeg are all around about the 50 mark, if I remember correctly. Annette and John have a Connemara glass. Well, one of them is Annette. Yeah, she's got it. So cheers, guys. It's not quite Connemara, but it's close. This was distilled, I think, in 2004. Before that, getting mixed up. 1999. 11 years in a bourbon cask and then transferred into the red Rhone cask for another 4 years. So quite a long time in the cask compared to the others. I would say the source wine, having tasted them both, it's a little bit more delicate than Anima Negra is. So looking at the casks, I would say the wine casks for this are probably less influenced than the Anima Negra ones would be in terms of what they've actually taken away from the wine into the wood. but we might get some of the similar aromas. So let's have a little smell. It's a nice mix there. Anyone getting strawberries? The smoke is obviously there, but it doesn't jump out at you immediately. You know, because we've been nosing unpeated whiskies so far tonight. You notice it, but I think if we preceded this with peated ones, we might be struggling to find the smoke after having some sort of peat monsters. But yeah, it's very subtle. It's a smoldering smoke there. It's not in your face, like sticking your head in a bonfire. It's just, can you smell smoke somewhere? It's there somewhere. Unsurprisingly, yeah, mostly getting red fruits in terms of the sort of fruit aromas. Some gentle spice as well. Anyway, let's go for a taste. Definitely notice the smoke now. Don't know about you guys. It's a nice level of smokiness. I think especially if you're not used to smoky whiskies, it's not gonna throw you off. You know, like some Islay whiskies are so extreme in their smokiness. You're kind of like you're struggling to taste anything else in the actual whiskey itself, other than the smoke. It kind of comes along in waves as well, doesn't it? It kind of initial wave, then it drops off, then it comes back again. Again, being a French oak cask, there are some sort of peppery tannin notes there, adding a bit of structure and complexity, maybe. Nice fruitiness, but the fruitiness, like unlike the other ones, it's kind of in the background for me anyway. It's kind of smoke, then spice, then fruit for me, but there's some sort of malty, sort of chocolatey sort of characters in the middle there somewhere as well. Dave enjoys the smokiness, nice medium level of smoke, yeah, a warm and a memorable, a memory of a fire. Yeah, not medicinal, no, definitely not. Another comment, there's a sweet bacony nose. Yeah, kind of crispy, smoky bacon or smoky bacon crisps. Tastes deceptively vegetative and finishes really salty. It's funny, yeah, the kind of smoky whiskies you very often get a sort of salty brine, you know, and I don't know if it's actually from the peat. I think distillers will tell you, oh, it's all about the coastal aging and whatnot, but you know, you get some distilleries like Lagavulin and Talisker that are in the main matured and mainland Scotland away from the distillery, and they still get that. So something in the air or the peat or something. Tom says sweet and creamy baked apple tart, which is a bit burnt. Yeah. Could be the power of suggestions, but I'm getting that now. Yeah. Toffee notes from Bartik. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something there, and it's like in that sort of burnt sort of toffee realm. Now that I'm tasting it again, which kind of goes well with that smokiness. So yeah, the smoke and some sweet notes combining to create that. Yeah, like slightly burnt toffee. What do you guys think? Do you like it? I know we might have a few people here who don't usually drink smoky whiskies, and it's always an interesting one to hear people's journey through sort of tasting whiskey. Because being from Scotland, I sort of gravitated to the smoky ones, and after a while, I was like completely turned away from the smoky ones and kind of became more into Speyside and sherry cask matured whiskies. These days, I'm more into whiskies that have a really nice balance of perhaps a little bit of smokiness, but not always. If you can combine lots of interesting flavors together, then that's a good whiskey, I think. JW says, love it, and I agree. Although he said initially the wine isn't really adding too much tannin or length to it. It really is the right amount of wine influence. Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks. I mean, wine casks are as tricky as anything when it comes to whiskey, because you don't want a whiskey tasting of wine rather than whiskey. And there have been a few notorious Scottish releases that have whiskies that have actually looked like wine or looked like red wine in the end, which is definitely something you want to avoid. But you have all kinds of stories of people leaving in, liters of whatever was in the cask before it was filled with whiskey, and it does happen occasionally. So yeah, we'll finish up this one, and we might go back and try some others. If there's any ones you want to taste again or talk about again, let me know. One last taste for me. Cheers. I didn't show you any of these earlier on, but hopefully you'll see them. I don't know if you can see that now. That's one of the maturation rooms at Domaine des Anges. So it's a very small winery. They have 18 hectares. I hope you can see that. Yeah, those obviously French oak wine barrels, much like the ones from Anima Negra. That I think is Bodegas Hidalgo, which is where we got the first cask for the first whiskey from, and I do have, I think, a picture of Anima Negra. Yeah, there we are. Not that it's any different really to Domaine des Anges, but that's Anima Negra's cellar. So the casks look much the same sort of quality anyway. But there you go. Hope you could see them. Oh, sorry. Just a file on your window. All right. Don't know what I'm doing wrong. Right. Sorry. Now I know. Now, hopefully you should see that. That's Anima Negra, and that's, hope you can see that. That's Hidalgo's cellar for the Countercast cane. You've seen that. And that's Domaine des Anges. So very small production. I think pretty much everything they sell, it mostly goes to Ireland and a few other countries, but yeah, kind of small estate in Ventoux area of France. So that's them all tried. I'm going to have a little glass of water. Let's see. I think it'd be interesting to try a wee head-to-head of the 17 and the 36. If you want to try any of your own, if you have any left, you're that tiny little bit there. I didn't try much of the PX at all. But yeah, I'm going to try the Oloroso again, which is Celtic Cask 36. That is probably a good time to talk about favorites, least favorites, or even any that you weren't into. Get on the chat, let me know. I find it very hard to tell. I do like Oloroso though, which is why I'm going back to the Oloroso first. Definitely getting more of a, going back to it, second time, a more sort of perfumed, almost like linseed oil and resinous sort of thing on the nose. I'll have a quick taste. Yeah, it's quite sweet for an Oloroso. A few votes coming in. DC doesn't like peated whiskey, so his favorite is Countercast 1. Dave says 3, 4, 1, 5, and 2 before revisiting. So 36 and 17 first before he tries them again. That's good to know. Yeah. Annette, you prefer the 36 to the 17. It's a difficult choice, isn't it? Vitali likes the Palo Cortado just a bit more, then the peated cask comes next, but all very nice. Thanks, Vitali. And James says 17, 10, 36, 1, and 29. So 17 is the PX. So I'm assuming you've got them in the order of preference. So James likes the PX best. Which I'm going to try now. So yeah. Some of you might have been on Celtic Cast tastings before, but I'll tell you a bit about how we decide when they're ready and whatnot. See. James said he would have normally expected he liked the PX least, so that's surprising. Yeah, I get what you're saying, James. I went through a period of not enjoying PX matured whiskies because they were just too cask influenced, too much stickiness and whatnot. But yeah, it really depends on the cask, I think. Thomas is going for 17, then 10, then 29, 36, and 1. So again, PX coming out top there. And the peated second. So I'm trying the PX now. Generally, we try and when we have casks maturing, once they're filled, we'll probably try them all within 3 months of being filled, and then try them again every sort of 3 months if we deem it necessary, depending on previous tasting. Because some casks and some young whiskies, there's just not much point in tasting them when they're only 3 years old, or even not quite whiskey yet, but they're in casks. But generally, it's about every 3 months we'd try them, and we might sort of highlight ones that we think are doing particularly well, or we're kind of impressed with, or having a lot of cask influence, and say to ourselves, well, we need to go back and try them again, just to keep an eye on them, or see if they're ready to bottle. Sorry, I'll catch up on the chat. Thomas Willoughby, another finish with a rum cask. We do have some rum casks with rum in them. So yes, I would say they will be used for whiskey after the rum has been emptied. I do really like rum. It's, rum finishes for whiskey, so to speak. So yeah, definitely be something we'd like to do. Just a question of getting hold of them. We don't go through brokers like everyone else. We try to work direct with the producer, so it's a bit more difficult working with rum producers. I don't think it's actually anything we've sort of reached out on. The rums we've got for our Celtic Cask bottlings have come through sort of friends and contacts who have been like, do you want to try this rum and do something with it? And we've done it that way. Bartek says 29, then 17, then 1, 36, then 10. So 29 is the, what's that one again? Oh yeah, that was the Anima Negra. Yeah, that's coming out top for Bartek, and then PX. So yeah, we'll try the casks, keep an eye on them. If there's anything that isn't progressing well, we'll sort of mark it down. If there's anything that is progressing really well and impressive, we'll mark it down. And the rest of them is just a question of sort of keeping an eye on them. And sometimes we might decide to decant them again into something else if they're not moving on properly, or there's not much happening. Depends on what we have. Obviously, that infamous Vinsanto one is one that we haven't done anything with. And then some of the others, like I can't remember the Celtic Cask number, but the first peated Great Northern we did was just a massive surprise, because that was bottled as a 4-year-old whiskey, but when we tasted it, it was like, wow, this is ready. It's ready to go. It tastes amazing. I'm going to say, I think I haven't gone back to the Celtic Cask Cane Palo Cortado, but I think the PX is my favorite as well. It's just a really nice, enjoyable facet to it. Just the kind of whiskey you could drink and drink and drink. Yeah. So I don't know if you've all emptied your sample bottles, but I'm gonna have a final sample. No, John hasn't. So this is Celtic Cask 1 again. I'm back with Palo Cortado. I just try and cast my mind back, because I think we did 3 in the first release, so 3 different casts. So there was this one, obviously, and I think Celtic Cask Doe was a peated whiskey. I can't remember what it was in. And then Countercast 3 was actually the only single grain we've done so far, which is something we should look at again. And that was in a red wine cask. Stephen says he liked the dough. Yeah, I have fond memories of that. John's looking up something quickly on his computer. He's going to correct me on something. One and three with a business, John and Annette. Yeah. We should really do more single grain. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you have, if you tried the Teeling 13-year-old in red wine casks, I mean, that's definitely a successful pairing. And if we have the red wine cask, we should really put some single grain in it. JW says the noses, all of these have changed quite a bit going back to Oloroso was more marshmallowy. Well, yeah, I was getting a more sweeter note on the second, tasting. Palacord had a more mineral now. And the PC on the finish isn't as punchy. Maybe you mean the PX. Yeah. So, great to hear everyone's thoughts on these. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know any final thoughts. Do like there's a certain resonance sort of quality to the number one, Cask 1. I'm not going to try the rest. That's enough for me tonight. So any final notes before we finish up? Get on the chat quickly, and I'll do a quick summary. So yeah, it's something I didn't even think about before we started, but these basically are all Cooley whiskies, and 4 unpeated ones, 1 peated one. And I think anyone trying new breeds of independent bottlers and new distilleries who are scrambling around for whiskey to use and bottle, will know that kind of there's a lot that can be done with Cooley single malt. I think it seems to be moldable into different guises. So we've had 5 pretty different whiskies, all slightly different ages, but very different flavor profiles to them all, even when you're just looking at the unpeated ones. So I think hopefully it shows what can be done with whiskey from one single distillery on different casks. And thanks, Olaf. Olaf, sorry, I keep mispronouncing your name. Awesome tasting from Vitaly. Many thanks to Alf. Lots of thanks, Vitaly. No, there was only a little bit of noise at the beginning, so that's fine. Yeah, glad to hear you're enjoying Celtic Whiskey Fest as well. That's good to know. A few more tastings to come. If anyone's doing the Iron one on Thursday, I'll be here for that, and I'm really looking forward to trying that. There's a couple of new whiskies, actually 3 new whiskies from them that we'll be doing that night. So it's probably still time to buy a pack for that if you want to join me on that one. I think there's someone from Iron jumping in with us as well, so we'll be able to get some great information on the whiskies, hopefully. Don't forget dramsdelivered.com, where you can get all those amazing whiskies from the Celtic Whiskey Bar and Larder without leaving your home, get them delivered straight to your door. So thanks to everyone. Thanks. I'm really glad you enjoyed the whiskies. And Yeah, round of applause for everyone for joining in, and some great tasting notes. I think going by the votes we got in, the PX seems to have won it, but good to hear some other people enjoyed the others. John's shaking his head. Is that number one, you're saying? Yeah, I think so. Number one for him. So thanks again, everyone. Hopefully see some of you on Thursday night for the Arran tasting. If not, I'll see you at a tasting soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye.